Jason, your audio was still connecting when I made a snide comment. I said it's going to be exciting now that you're here. And you're muted, dear.
Okay. I'm super excited that Rita can make snide comments now that I'm here. It's fantastic. And as if I don't do a good enough job at eye contact now, I have got the laptop on the table and watching you all on my television at the same time. So this should look pretty weird.
Because we weren't just nearly big enough on your computer screen, huh?
Yes, exactly. That's it. So are you the leader of the Winter Patrol tonight, being that Don's out on walkabout?
I am.
Excellent. And what are we going to talk about?
He's outstanding in his field today.
What? In his field?
He's outstanding in his field.
Yes, he's always outstanding in his field.
What are we going to talk about? It's happy hour. We're going to talk about drinks, aren't we?
Okay, drinks are all right. I'll need to get more, I think.
You'll have to walk all the way over to that refrigerator under your television.
No, actually, that's not here anymore. That will be replaced. I'll have to go to the other shop and get, walk an extra 45 feet, I guess.
How's everybody doing tonight?
Good. How about you, Christopher?
Oh, not too bad. I'm here. I made it through the election.
Yeah.
How'd your exam go last week?
It went good. I finished and got a 98 on my final.
Christopher, dare I ask, what was the final for? That is the absolute best picture to freeze on.
Which one?
I got the one with the spoon. Your mid-bite. I thought that was excellent. But really, what was your final exam for?
Communication sciences.
Excellent.
Yeah. I've been doing a lot of online classes since COVID.
I thought COVID was supposed to end today.
Oh, yeah, of course it did. Today, COVID ended the Madison College motorcycle program for 2021. Or at least the colleges, the official stance is they will not be running classes through summer as of right now, but they always give me the out of, oh, that may change. I'm like, no, it's a grant program. We're not going to go midway through a grant and try and figure it out for not much money. I know they're not going to, but who knows? It may change. But
for next summer?
Yeah, 2021. Minimum, we're not going to have motorcycle classes for the summer semester, which pretty much means that hypothetically we could do classes starting last week in August when fall semester starts. But
holy cow,
I don't see that happening. Too much paperwork and
situation with us. We have two colleges in our system that they will not be in person until at least May at the earliest. Our Harper program, our Central Illinois program won't be in class at all until May.
So with our college, it has everything to do with degree credit programs. So everything that is non-degree credit, as I like to tell people, our business is to create taxpayers. So anything that you might consider an enrichment class is on the chopping block that cannot be done online. And my words, I'm saying that the college needs to reprioritize its funds to make these programs that basically create taxpayers work even in a hybrid or online environment. And at that same time, so I've been at home doing the COVID quarantining for the most part, even though I've been tested and all that kind of crap. But my regular class meets in person 3 days a week. So, I mean, you can't replace auto mechanics or what I do, diesel mechanics, with 100% online, because the kids are paying to, make those mistakes in person, so to speak. So if it creates taxpayers, we still do it, even though it's technically a hybrid format.
I had no idea that some areas were projecting that far out. I mean, that's almost a full year from now.
We were told at the beginning of the semester to just make plans for fall semester to be the same as this fall, and see where it goes from there. But I think that based on the numbers, bounce back is the term that I'm being told, that they're just expecting it to happen again throughout the spring. And guess what? We're going to be on our heels trying to backpedal and figure out where we're at next year. And for all these programs that could potentially make a shift and happen in person, it's way easier to sell somebody on the idea of hybrids of potential when you can continue to operate hybrid if you want to, versus sell them in person and then tell them, oh, hey, guess what? We're not doing this. Oh, yeah, and you're not getting a refund, which basically happened this semester.
Ouch.
From the standpoint of the motorcycle classes, though, it's hard for me to sit back and go, yeah, this is the best choice. I mean, I understand from a college optics standpoint, you don't want to be the petri dish. There's thousands of people that walk through the front door, but from our motorcycle programs perspective and what we've done with our diesel and automotive programs, literally give these people the option of their own door. They walk in and walk out. It can be cleaned and taken care of. I think it's low risk, but I understand that as a whole, the college doesn't want to take that chance. So kind of disappointing, because we just don't have that much classroom time.
Wouldn't it be interesting if there would be some data collection having been done over this whole season, where most of us ended up running at least in some kind of a modified format? Because as far as I know, there was never any kind of a transmission or infection problem with outside stuff like that.
Our campus, the college doesn't run my program. I lease space from the college, so the enrollment and everything happens through us, but we are on the college campus. And they were very anxious to have us be on campus as soon as we could jump through the state hurdles of, having a game plan and, this rule and that rule and such. And when we first started up, which wasn't until the very end of June, it was just us and the police academy on campus. They had no other classes happening at all. And that was pretty much the case throughout the summer. And then when the fall semester started, it's pretty much all online, except for some of the nursing classes and the shop classes. They have welding and things like that. And out of all of the classes, the shop and everything, I think ours is probably the most socially distant, by certainly the range by its nature. And we asked them to give us an appropriately sized classroom that our, people could be spread out. We marked the desks, that were going to be used, so everybody is really spread apart. And we would occasionally run the classroom outdoors if the weather was fine. And we've had no issues with that. So of course, we don't know what's going to happen in the spring either, but I'm going forward on the presumption that we're going to be able to carry on where we left off. And we ran a very busy summer on that basis. So it's disappointing to hear that there's places that are just ruling it out outright, without maybe really looking at all the details.
Well, I understand being under the microscope as a big institution. It's really great that you have a partner that's looking at the idea that, hey, we can have somebody on campus. And of course, there's probably part of them thinking, hey, it's not 100% our liability if something bad happens. So that's good. I have some, aside from working at a college and helping out with the motorcycle safety program there. I also leased space for them for the Can-Am program that we did in Madison. We terminated that this year. May be able to do that next year, but the space that we do Can-Am at is a totally different space than we run our two-wheel program at. The Can-Am program is technically, some of it's in a different county, which is better for optics. Also, it is totally out of sight. Where our facility in Madison that we use is literally we have the greatest location ever with thousands of cars driving by daily to potentially see us. And that's what they don't want, apparently, is that the optics of what's going on. Where the college that I rent from in Green Bay, they also don't have their own program. They canceled their own program, but they were more than happy to rent to an outside entity and basically told me I could run a two-wheel program up there if I wanted to. I just couldn't figure out the logistics of making it run. So some colleges want it because they want the income. Ours in Madison was more, I think they cited on not only being very cautious, which is a good thing, but more worried about how it's going to look after the fact and thinking that's going to be worse for them in the long run, because they do serve a lot of the community when things are up and going.
My daughter, she goes to a technical school through high school for an EMT class to get certified as an EMT. And they've already been shut down twice this semester. They started off the beginning of the semester as a hybrid where they would go 2 days a week and they would do remote 3 days a week. And then they decided to go full in-person learning because it's a relatively small group. I think there's 12 in their group. And they did that for about 2 or 3 weeks. And then somebody tested positive in the building with COVID. So they had to shut them down. They shut them down for 2 weeks and put them back on full remote learning, and have done that twice since school started. And how are you supposed to learn a program like EMT without having hands-on? You know, it's kind of hard to do it remotely. And same thing with in the spring, when she was finishing up her junior year, she was going through a CNA class to get her CNA license. And same thing, she got shut down in March, and they finished the last part of school completely online. Fortunately, she was well enough along in the program and had enough knowledge that she could pass her CNA test, and she got her CNA certification. But had it been any earlier, I think she would have probably failed that class.
I think in our case, we were kind of fortunate timing wise, because, you know, New York was kind of in the start of everything, and kind of clamped down pretty hard early. And so the beginning of our season was wrecked, but you know, they set a lot of protocols in place. In fact, I feel like the college looked to me to guide them. Hey, here's how we're going to do it, you know, and they actually adopted some of our stuff into how they rolled out other programs.
Yeah, in Illinois, our program, we didn't even get started until the end of August or the first part of September. So our whole season was about 2 months long.
How many students were served in that 2 months in Illinois?
I don't think he was paying attention, Jason.
My system froze up, I think.
Okay.
We had 800 students.
Did you say 800?
Yeah.
In 2 weeks?
2 months.
I'm sorry, 2 months. Still, holy shit. That's it. Mind blowing to me. That's definitely paperwork for somebody.
Yeah, we ran 2 regions. Harper ran 11 classes a week, and our central region, Illinois Central College, ran about 8 classes a week.
Damn, that's almost a season for us, right, Mike?
Our Harper range, they have 15 training facilities, and some of those training facilities have up to 3 ranges.
Yeah, I was just texting you. I'm sure you've got our numbers for the season, Ron.
Yeah, about 500.
How long was the season and how many ranges?
3 months, 1. Hi, Rita.
Hi, Ron.
Did that come through? 3 months, 1 range?
Yeah, it did. Very impressed. We're all so in awe that we're speechless.
Ah, I have that effect on people.
With those kind of numbers, it's pretty good.
I'm impressed with Chris's numbers with 11. What do you say? 11 ranges on. Like, what? God. And I'm probably pretty sure he had one heck of a backlog. So everybody was chomping at the bit to get in.
Well, and that covers the whole north third of the state of Illinois. And since they don't charge for classes, yeah, they had probably, I'm sure, a huge backlog. I think the folks at Harper spent a lot of time on the phone fielding calls and switching things around.
Wow.
We also ran reduced class numbers in all of our classes down to 8 students, and still pulled 800 students, or about 800 students.
Wow, that's even more impressive.
In addition, to make it even more impressive, normally they allow walk-ins because students sign up for the classes, and when you only have to put a $20 deposit down to hold your spot, it's not uncommon for folks not to show up. So in non-COVID times, they allow people to stand at the door, and if somebody doesn't show up for the class, then you get that spot. Because of COVID, they've not allowed any walk-ins, that, and also because they started using the e-course because of COVID, and they wanted people to have the e-course done before they came to class, so that it inhibited allowing walk-ins. So normally where all the spots would be full, because you'd have sometimes more, 30, 40 people standing at the door holding their lottery ticket, hoping they'd win a walk-in spot. You only have the 8 students at max showing up who are signed up for the class. And of that 8, I think they had a lot of classes where not all 8 showed up.
Yeah.
Well, my big surprise was we lost April, May, and June. We got the last day or two of June, and we ran through until a week ago. And my Watertown site never got opened at all, but at Utica, I actually trained a handful more people than I did last year, because my coaches stepped up and did a very aggressive schedule. And since the college was empty, I asked if I could have a couple of weekdays during the fall, because normally we're only there on weekends when school starts. But since no one was on campus pretty much, I snagged my parking lot for a Monday, Tuesday class as well. So we did all right. We can keep the lights on at least, and that's really the goal for this year, is to survive.
Yeah, the bad part of our season, though, is we canceled over 1,100 classes statewide.
And
Wow.
when you multiply that times 12 students per class.
Yeah, we were We were on par to do about 16,000 students statewide this year.
That sounds like a lot.
I don't know what the New York numbers are statewide, but I know some sites didn't get open at all. So there were a lot of canceled classes.
Yeah, our state's broken up into 3 regions. We have a southern region, which is basically everything south of Springfield, Illinois, which is where I live, is our southern region. And that's the biggest region, but they do the smallest amount of students because it's all rural. They will do about 250 classes a year in that area. Our central region goes from Springfield, Illinois, up to I-80, just south of Chicago, everything in between there. And they will do about 600 to 650 in classes. And then our northern region, which is Harper, and they do about 800 to 900 classes. And they, you know, the central region, they have 15 ranges, and the northern region has 13 ranges, but even though they've got 13 ranges, they've got like 16, or 13 training sites. They've got like 16 ranges in the 13 training sites because of doubles and triples.
Those are pretty impressive numbers for myself, guy who started a 2-wheel program with 4 motorcycles. We had 4-person classes going. I was very excited when I realized we've taught more than 80 people this year, not knowing where do you start. But eventually I moved up to an 8-person class, so I have 9 motorcycles to do this with. Well, actually we have 11, but that only happened with our, we'll call it the 2 silent partners here, Sarah Kretschmar and Ted Jenkins, who helped me out tremendously and kind of made Milwaukee happen. So like the Village Bicycle, I get around. We do Milwaukee, Madison, and Green Bay and Sturtevant. And all of this was supposed to be for 3-wheel stuff. I don't know why I decided 2-wheel was a great idea. It's not a, may not be the best financial decision of my life, but goddamn it, it was fun and people got paid. So that was cool. And Rita helped tremendously as well.
I thought you meant the 2 silent partners who share a roof with you, one of whom helped
use their motorcycles.
Yeah, with their motorcycles.
Yes. Things to start a business with, your kids' motorcycles. And the oldest one asked me, he's like, what do you mean you're going to be training people on my motorcycles? What if they crash? Like, well, you did the first time you got on it, and it's still got the same bent lever on it. And lo and behold, that bike again, yeah, it's been bounced off the ground.
So what are you using for training motorcycles? What have the kids got?
Z125s.
Yeah, I can't ride those. I tried.
You can. You just have to loosen up the handlebars a little bit, tilt them just a little forward, and it's a totally different motorcycle. I realize it looks like a clown bike, but for everything that we do in class, I mean, remember that, and some of you, if you work in Michigan, they're still using them. Those 125 Honda trainers that came over in the early 90s. Those bikes were completely gutless. You could push start that, and it wasn't even like you did anything when you let the clutch out. It was awesome. And I hated them when I started, and now I have a new appreciation for that. Z125s are similar but different.
Now, Ron picked up a couple of them, and I made the mistake of using one early on in the season. And I think it was exercise 5. I was doing the offset weave, and my leg got stuck between the handlebar and the foot peg in the middle of the demo. And I decided, yeah, I'm not using that bike again.
Hey, look, there's one of your silent partners now, Jason. Hi, Miss Amelia.
Let me unmute it. Now say it again.
Hi. Hey, Amelia. Hi, it's Sarah.
Sarah's incognito.
Turn your camera on, Sarah.
Oh, for goodness sake. It's really bright in here. See, it's really bright. And here, how's this?
You look like the Great Pumpkin. How Halloween-y.
I was outside. So it's really bright in this room. And if I turn off the light, it won't be good either. So how's it going, Amelia? Talk to us.
Good.
Yeah, what are you doing?
I'm asking everyone to sign a birthday card for my cousin Elliot. It's her birthday, so we're mailing her presents and a card.
Oh, that's so sweet of you guys. What grade are you in now? Are you a senior in high school already?
5th grade.
Close enough.
Very close. That's right. 10 going on 40.
Clearly. Have you baked anything lately?
Oh boy.
Yesterday I made sugar cookies.
Oh, do you have any left?
But the boys ate all of them overnight.
We all understand, don't we?
But my mom made the icing, which was really good. She made it from like scratch out of memory, which was really cool.
Oh,
Good job, kid.
Jason, how old was Amelia when she explained to you that it's okay to drag foot pegs because they fold up?
6 or 7. That was a very stern talking to I got.
and you're still using Michael's bike in the training?
Oh, yes.
Would you
Yes.
share with everyone how old Michael is?
He's 13.
He's
He got
13.
his Z125 when he turned 10.
Let's
I
go
see.
back to the talking to you got from your then 6-year-old. Hear
Oh,
the
boy.
story again.
Well, there's photos somewhere, probably on a Facebook page. Anyways, my kids love that I, took them to the college range when we didn't have class and let them ride. And eventually I took them out to our Columbus facility where our state patrol guys and the county sheriffs and of course our police academy train. And they have big cones everywhere for cars and evasive maneuvers that happen to be dead nuts, like right in the middle of path of travel for pick any exercise you want. And there's 2 ranges on this area. So we have one range where the cops set up all their cones. The other range that is probably the getting up to speed area for the cops' maneuvers. The first range with getting up to speed area, no cones in any path of travel at all. And my kids have done this enough where they kind of know where they can ride. So you show them an MSF paint job and they're like, hey, here, we'll take care of this. And Amelia goes right for the one with the cones in it. And she's riding through the peanut thing. And eventually gets to the point of scraping her pegs on the ground. And then it became scraping her pegs on the ground to get around the cones that are like mid path of travel, which, it's an 8-foot wide lane or so. They're like, hey, kid. Yeah, Dad. So the bike's warning you. What do you mean it's warning me? I'm like, when the pegs scrape on the ground, it's warning you. She's like, Dad, the pegs fold up. It's going to be okay. You could do that. And she's got her winter coat and winter boots on and just having a great time. Scraping her pegs, driving around the cones that are in the path of travel because it's more fun that way. I wish students would see the joy in doing this. And in the students that we've had, in fact, I had one, you get that one student. I got at least one. I got a whole letter about how our motorcycles are not very good training motorcycles. Probably not unlike Mike. Got her foot caught on a foot peg and didn't like that very much and bruised her legs and almost died in my class. She risked her life coming to my class because she wanted something to do during COVID. And thought, wow, yeah, you did. So I have an entire letter that I send out to students on my own. And the first one just says, motorcycling is a dangerous and physical activity. You may get injured or even die. And I brought that back. I'm like, hey, remember this letter you signed? You totally just validated what I said. But I have no idea why somebody has bruises on their legs from riding that motorcycle. Because after the first time I hit my legs, I probably would change how I was sitting on it. But I didn't really tell her that. After she told me it sucked and it was hard to ride, I said it's been very challenging for my 10-year-old to learn how to ride it at the racetrack as well. But don't worry, he can get it. You can too. apparently that was a little bit too much. And that was a Sarah Kretschmar taught class, and she did fantastic with her other instructor. And I sent this whole letter backing up how the team went over and beyond their expectations to help this person out, and she was still pissed. But God damn it, the team's awesome.
That particular class had the 125s, and it also had the street 500s in it. And this particular student asked me which one I preferred, and I always prefer the street. I think it's got a much lower center of gravity. I think it's perfect for us short-legged people. And I think it's a spectacular training bike because I compare it to the Buells that we used to have. And I think the Street 500 is a dream compared to the Buells. So I love it. And so, I do believe that people with long legs seem to get bruises if they try to do part 2 of exercise 2 and don't fold up those pegs. I know, because I get bruised if I do the demo and I don't remember to fold up the pegs on that particular, but I always wear leather legs, so I don't mind poking my legs with those.
Your experience with your student on the bike sounds like my last class I had a student. I teach down in Missouri because of my licensing and working with the state, so I can't teach in Illinois, so I go to Missouri to teach. And my last class of the season down there, I had a young man, 16 years old. His dad took him to class for his 16th birthday to get his license. He's 6'7", 290 pounds on a TU 250. It was like a grizzly bear on a tricycle.
That's interesting. I think the TUs are tall. I can't even get a toe down on them.
You know, the TUs have a taller seat height, but they're really not appropriate for a very tall person because from the seat
at that training site.
From the seat to the pegs, it's very squishy. And if you're very tall, from your shoulders to the bars is too far of a reach. You end up holding yourself over to reach the handlebars. It's really, even though it's a tall seated bike, it's actually better suited to a medium-sized person, in my opinion.
I don't think that there's a training bike that meets the demographic that Christopher needed. Nothing in the training regiment fits that.
Yeah, I mean, this boy, he was 16 years old, 6'7", 290 pounds. He was a big boy.
Better get him like a KLR.
Kimco.
Have any of you ever paid attention to maximum load limits on your training motorcycles when you have larger students? And what have you done? If you have, what have you done if you have a student who exceeds all your motorcycles?
Okay, so I asked that on one of the VRETs not that long ago when it was the liability one. And regrettably, that question did not get answered, but I have this conundrum all the time because that's what you're describing, Christopher, is not unusual at all in my experience.
We get a lot of large people here in Wisconsin. I mean, huge.
We had that happen once in Rochester, and I actually had to turn the person away because they were just like 400 pounds and wanted to take the course on a 250 GZ 250. I'm like, no, sorry, ain't gonna happen. And
Well,
even the Kimco wouldn't handle that one.
And some of our dual sport bikes are so old and so rickety. Sometimes I just think that thing is just going to like completely collapse underneath the student.
The Street 500s are not for anybody tall either. I notice men get their hips shoved into their knees, or they're like almost chomping on their knees on the Street 500. I mean, I can sit on a tall seat just fine on a Street 500 and I'm 5 feet. So it's not.
The GZs will accommodate pretty tall people if you rotate the bars up and adjust the foot controls. But the weight thing, you can only get so much weight on them. And I did have a 400 pounder. It was a number of years ago now. And I went to our program manager and said, I got this guy, he's, you know, he can't fit in a trainer. And we kind of got a special dispensation to use his own bike, which was bigger. And at the time we had more stringent, you know, size parameters. So he got a waiver to go outside that. But usually they can fit on a training bike. I haven't had too many 400 pounders. If they're 300 pounds, we can make do.
And besides, that's what the 2LW is for now.
I think that's
BYO.
in Wisconsin. I really do.
Yeah, but
Sorry, step
what
down.
do you-
Try it again. Sarah, I talked over you. Do it again.
I just think that there's larger people in Wisconsin. We have a lot of cheese to eat.
What's Minnesota's excuse, do you think?
Are there large people in Minnesota too? Do you know the average size woman in Wisconsin is a size 14? Minnesota too? I don't know men, I only know women. They're pretty big here. in
To
Wisconsin.
a conference in Wisconsin. Of course, I had to buy some cheese. And on the way home, I'm at TSA at the airport. My bags are going through the x-ray machine. And the guy says, you wouldn't have a big old piece of cheese in your luggage, would you? I said, yes. He said, I said, you must ask people that all day long. He says, yep. So he had to inspect my cheese.
You can buy cheese at the airport.
So Sarah, the average woman, American woman, is size 14.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Who said
the
that?
average American woman is a size 14. And
Wait, how do you know this, Belinda?
weight management. And so working with people under weight management, being myself under weight management, the average American woman is not a size 8 anymore. They actually, I mean, whenever you get to a certain weight, and the BMI, actually, people are starting to question that. We've been questioning that for a long time, because it's just not, sometimes it's not healthy, because like my BMI says, because I'm 5'4", I should weigh 130 pounds. But if I weigh 130 pounds, I look like I've been smoking meth. And so because of my body style. And so, but yes, I agree with you on one thing about the 500s. It is designed for people like that are 5'5" and weigh between 140 and 160 pounds. If you're shorter or taller than that, you can do whatever you can. Those reach seats can only do so much. The tall boys can do so much. And those little training bikes, those little 250 training bikes that the states use sometimes, the colleges use them, I call them wedgie bikes. And sorry guys, there's my little one in the background. But those are wedgie bikes because you do have to tiptoe if you're short. But the 500s are I enjoy riding those. And so I bought one actually when I first started riding.
Did you? Me too.
This is Sarah from Illinois. We're talking about weights and stuff. And so when we look at everyone's driver's license, do you all collect their weights? Because it is on their driver's license. I'm wondering, or taking a look at that might be something to kind of get yourself ahead before you get to the range. Just kind of wondering.
Man, I think I would need a fleet of tri-glides if I actually looked at people's weights and thought reasonably how to get these people through a class. No, and the first person I talked to about their weight and about how it fits in the class, that's just not a conversation I want to have.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think that the conversation about, oh, by the way, you exceed the weight limit of all of our motorcycles. I don't know.
Jason,
Just going on the weight limit on a license, I went with my wife just recently. She would kill me if she heard me say this, but we went through the DMV to get the license, and they said, has your weight changed according to your license? She said, no.
I'm pretty sure New York doesn't have that.
Since I was 16 years old, but even having 3 children, I've weighed the same since I was 16. There's no way I'm changing that weight.
conversely, I had a student whose license showed them at over 400 pounds, and they had lost significant weight since then, like a couple 100 pounds.
We had
A good general rule: if you weigh more than the motorcycle, don't get on it.
we had a guy in class once who was very.
How do we make sure that how do we make sure our students don't weigh more than the motorcycle? Should we have that posted somewhere? Like, you know, if we're not going to ask them their weight, we kind of need to know this. Is that a liability? Does their insurance cover this? You know, kind of
It's right up there with, you know, wear a helmet, wear gloves, wear a mask, and if you weigh more than your motorcycle, don't sit on it. Let it sit on you.
Should we put it on the pre-ride quiz? Can you ride a bicycle? Yes. Do you weigh more than the motorcycle?
Not that they necessarily know how much a motorcycle weighs. I had a student tell me his Gixxer weighed 800 and some pounds.
It might if you put enough lights and stuff on it.
That might be a really souped up Gixxer.
No, he wrote it to class. It was not.
You know, if you put an extended swing arm and a 300 rear tire and a nitrous bottle, it might get close.
I remember that guy. I remember
might-
that guy. Sam talked to him about riding at the racetrack. He was an interesting individual.
Yeah. His
Hit 50 on it if you did all those mods on it, but you're not going to hit much more than that.
yeah, his new bike weighed over 800, but his old one only weighed about 400. It must be like the new engine is what he told me. Jason, were you in charge of the Madison College
Really?
program when we borrowed a 400 DR from Englehart for a student who was very large?
Really? No,
Yeah.
that was before we got the Hio stuff for sure.
It must have been
Not
must have
not
been
my
when
bag.
must have been when Jenneke was there. We had a student, and somehow we knew ahead of time, or the program manager knew ahead of time, that he was extremely large, and a program manager went to a local dealership and borrowed a DR 400 that had a weight capacity that would fit the student.
Dave Jenneke,
Yeah.
I have a letter from him that I
Uh-oh.
printed out. It's like 18 years old. I kept it on my bulletin board the whole time. It's a really nice letter. That's all.
We had a student who's a young guy. He was in his 20s, and he was just kind of like uncoordinated and awkward, and he was really kind of struggling with his skills. And after the first day, the other coach and I were talking after class, and he said, you know, he just doesn't look comfortable in his own skin. He says, I can't put my finger on it, but he just doesn't look comfortable in his own skin. And the next day we found out that he also had lost about 200 pounds, and he wasn't comfortable in his own skin. You know, he was kind of relearning how to move and coordinate himself. And he was on this adventure, you know, so props to him, but he really struggled.
I used to have a problem before where I get an email or a phone call and they would say, do you have a bike that'll fit me? I'm only 5 foot tall or 4'11". So I'd say, yeah, we got that. I can work with that. We got a Honda Rebel or whatever. And they'd show up for class and they would be 400 pounds. So they wouldn't really fit on it anymore. So eventually I figured out somehow you have to ask them what their weight is. Because that happened multiple times here in the Carolinas.
Are you allowed to ask, hey, what's your weight, by the way? Is that acceptable?
You can ask anything.
Can you?
The response you get may not be something you were looking. Sure, it's not a job interview. It's not one of those things where I can't ask, do you have kids? There's no illegal questions to ask. Hell, half the people that say that their COVID mask requirements are covered by HIPAA and you can't ask me that are totally full of shit. You can ask whatever you want. Is it really a good idea? Totally different story. But, you know, in all reality, you know, what do you do? Like Chuck said, you get somebody that's 4'11", standing up or sitting down, or standing up or laying down, and we now have a problem where it just doesn't fit. And you got to tell somebody straight up. But normally, I mean, getting around to that, hey, if you're really concerned, come on in. We'll show you the bikes before you start. Or here's a list of motorcycles we have. Please see your local dealership, and we'll see if, you know, you can make that decision if that's going to be the right bike for you. One of the reasons I chose to get a fleet of Z125s, everybody can go to a dealership and find one. And because I'm cheap. Uh-oh, Ron, what do you got?
Or you say, or before you register, why don't you come down, make an appointment? We'll come down, we'll try on a bike for you, and we'll make sure that we can accommodate you. Then you don't have to ask how much they weigh.
That's what I do. And you know, I used to have a parameter saying if you're particularly short or particularly tall, and the tall thing ended up not being so much of an issue. So I eliminated that. And I just say, hey, if you're particularly short, give us a call and schedule a fitting to come down and see if you'll fit on the motorcycle. And the weight thing happens so infrequently, you know, where we're really pushing the envelope, that I felt a need to address it globally. You know, if someone comes in and they don't fit, oh, well, I'll boot them out and, you know, deal with it on a case by case basis. But I do get students to call me up, and they do come down, and, you know, we try them out on a bike, and most of the time they do fit. Occasionally we're on the edge, you know, and I have had a few people who've said, you know what, I'm really not comfortable with how I reach. I'm going to, you know, they have the option of getting their own bike where they might reach better. And, you know, that's an option for them, you know, if they want to pursue it that way. So
when we have that issue, whenever we have things that people are just like, oh, I can't seem, this bike doesn't seem to fit me. And I said, well, it's not really your bike, is it? You're just learning the techniques of learning to ride a motorcycle. When you go down to the dealership, or if I'm at a dealership, I'm like, when you go find your bike that fits you, you're going to do so much better. You're going to be able to ride so much better. This is only for 2 short days. This is even yours. And, you know, and because we get a lot of that. And I know that I see that in it, like my really shorter ladies, our vertically challenged ladies. And then our really tall guys, you know, they're just so, they just still got uncomfortable. You know, I was thinking like Gumby on a motorcycle. Looks kind of funny, but I tell them, I'm like, but this isn't your motorcycle. So if you're getting what you're supposed to be getting, and you're understanding and you're riding, you know, let's see how far we can go with this. Now, if they just get super uncomfortable and they're so unsafe, then of course we'll have that conversation of maybe the BRC2, you know, BRC2 may be fun for you. You know, once you go get your own bike, it's pretty much the same thing, But just reminding them that they're only here for a couple of days, and that when they go get that big, beautiful new bike, or that itty bitty little bike they need, then they're going to have so much more fun. Don't let this take the joy from you, you know, because remember, riding a motorcycle is joy.
You know, that said, there's lots of adjustments that we can make to enhance student experience. And, you know, I've got a couple of bikes that I've got the bars raised up on already. So, you know, before exercise 1, we're kind of sizing up, and, you know, our big guys are going to go on those bikes with the raised up bars. And, you know, I'll adjust foot pegs, not foot pegs, but brake pedal height or gear shift lever height to accommodate people, you know, how much they can flex at the ankle. And those are like really fast adjustments. And, you know, it makes it a lot better experience for those gigantic people or really small people that are kind of outside the normal spectrum.
At the rate that I just learned that Kawasaki rates the Z125 with a 354-pound load capacity, I am less worried about almost anything. And not about to bring a scale to class, but yeah, even me sitting on one of those things kind of feels like a monkey on a football. And I know that the suspension sags tremendously, which works out really good when you have a 10-year-old and their feet don't hit to the ground. Just let dad sit on the back and miraculously the feet touch the ground and the confidence is there. But, you know, we have some problems or some challenges. I don't know. I'd be really curious if we ever got to the point of a student in any class where the brakes really didn't have the ability to stop the student at MSF speed in an MSF standard, which really just isn't that high of a standard.
I've actually seen that all the time on our rickety dual sports where the brakes don't work great to begin with, and then they're ancient and maybe the master cylinders need to be rebuilt or whatever. And there's not a chance in heck that that big student is getting that sucker stopped within the standard.
So based on all the things you just gave for reasoning why that doesn't happen, I guess, Mike, so who does the state own your bikes? I'm guessing. And are they lacking of funding for replacing that kind of stuff, or just don't want to?
I think there's a lot of layers of answers to that question. We have our fleet maintenance is a contract through the state. So the state does not actually maintain the bikes beyond what we as rider coaches do here and there. But the maintenance contract is a contract that the state awards. And so we're sort of at the mercy of what happens, you know, what that contract holder does to the bikes or doesn't do to the bikes. And so let's say I have a full class and there's 13 bikes in the trailer, and I know that the brakes work like crap on the dual sports. I'm going to leave out the one spare bike that has the worst brakes and hope for the best. And, you know, I mean, if it's all a pile of crap, then it's all a pile of crap, you know. I don't know. I mean, it's not the situation that I would hope for, but I think
that sucks.
It's a very tough situation to be left in.
Also, from a liability standpoint, it's kind of an interesting conversation you could be having.
Yeah, it sucks. I mean, if I get on the bike and I'm like, holy crap, the brakes work like total crap on this thing, I can barely get it stopped. You know, how is that an okay situation for a student to be put in? And the weird thing is, I mean, you'll get a handful of rider coaches who would get on that bike and be like, oh, it's fine. You know, the brakes work okay. Sorry, no, they really don't. So yeah, I mean, it's a bummer.
After hearing your story, Laura, I think Sarah would agree that our program's pretty good. We do all of our own maintenance.
Yeah, we have our own maintenance team and manager and everything. I wonder, is it in your budget for your state to have that kind of thing, like more part-time, regular kind of staff to help you out with that?
It is. So for instance, if I find a bike in the trailer that either doesn't work or that is in a state that I don't feel it's rideable, I'm going to take that and I'm going to call the contractor and I'm going to say, hey, this bike needs whatever. And so they come and get it when they do their gas run and bring it back to the shop and swap it out for one that's supposedly better. But if I said to that person, the brakes are unacceptably bad on this, you know, how far is that going to go? Like, there's no accountability. Nobody's ever going to call me back and say, we agree the brakes are unacceptably bad and we did the X, Y, and Z, and somebody see if it's better or you see if it's better. There's just like, everything is just too disjointed for that to ever happen, which is, I think, part of the problem. But, you know, I think that for the most part, they do a pretty good job. It's just that because there is not, in my opinion, enough accountability or enough direct communication with those people, stuff isn't necessarily always the way that you would hope for it to be.
Laura, that was a very diplomatic response. If you could finish that glass of wine and another one and then tell us about how Minnesota runs their program, we would all benefit from that tremendously.
I think it's an interesting dynamic that, you know, just that in Minnesota, especially, like having that maintenance contract and having that through the state is really a big deal for a bike shop for whom, very little very little happens in the winter here, right? You know that. And so if that was me, or, speaking from a position of somebody who is not a business owner and doesn't own a bike shop, I would do everything I could to make sure that I was doing the absolute A+ job that I could do, to keep that contract provider happy. And I guess that's not necessarily the way that I see that things go down. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a bummer, but it, I suppose, could be worse.
Is your maintenance provider like one centralized agency or place for the entire fleet, or is it individualized to specific areas?
So that also has a few layers of answer. For the most part, there is one contract for the fleet of motorcycles throughout the state. However, because our outstate sites are outstate, so you're talking about a few hundred miles between, or several hundred miles between where that contract shop is and then where the outstate sites are. Some of the outstate sites do their own maintenance, or do as much of their own maintenance as they can. And then let's say if there's an emergency or something that they can't manage, then somebody would come and get the bike and swap it out the way they would do for a closer to their site kind of situation. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's probably not a terrible situation, but I guess I live in a world where things can always be better.
Every site has some version of that struggle, though, where, it's the boots on the ground, the coaches that are having to make a decision about what bike gets used. And some coaches are good at making that decision and other ones are not, and as a QA person, I've gone and seen horrific motorcycles in use when there's one in the container that looks pretty good, and it's, you kind of have to wonder what's going on in the head of the coach that's making that call. But every site has that struggle of, this is broken. How does that information work its way up the chain to a point where it actually gets fixed? And, years ago we had our bikes were fixed by an outside agency, and they did a terrible job. I mean, it was a train wreck, and I was very happy when that went away and it was put in our laps. And of course, it's more work for me, but I would tell my coaches, please, for goodness sake, if there's something broken, tell me about it, because I can't fix it if I don't know about it. Oh, and don't leave the broken one all the way in the back of the container. Leave it where I can put my hands on it. Hate having to move 12 bikes to get to the broken one,
Right. So that, as far as the reporting system and all of that, that actually works pretty good. And coaches do a really pretty nice job with that, because they know that if they don't do something about a broken bike, then what will happen is that whoever is scheduled to teach the next class will show up and there won't be enough bikes for their class or whatever. And it's kind of going to be on them, and that's a bigger problem. So that all works really pretty good. But because the mechanism is, I, as the coach, call and leave a voicemail and say what's wrong with the bike, and I tag the bike and I leave it at the back of the trailer, that's all fine and dandy. And then they come and get the bike, and who knows if the person that got the voicemail about what's wrong with the bike is the one that's actually coming to get the bike, or the one that's looking at the bike or fixing the bike, or if they took that seriously or looked at it and said, no, there's 6 things wrong with it, but that's not one of them. Who knows? There's just never any follow-up to any of that. And so I think for coaches, it just feels all kind of like this, like, random thing that they do and hope for the best. And for the most part, it all works out. But I think it seems to coaches like there's very little accountability after they do what they're accountable for.
And then you get the mechanic who says, gee, I tried it. It started right up. I don't know what their problem is.
Well,
gee,
and I mean, we all know
for me, right?
Yeah, and we all know as motorcyclists that sometimes that's true, right? Sometimes that actually is the way it works. So I get that. But I don't know. I mean, I think the bigger issue is that we just really need to figure out how to get our fleet upgraded, newer bikes.
I have a lot of I've been doing this for a long time, and I know that there's certain things that are just going to wear out or break, or if it falls over, this busts. And I have a huge supply of parts on hand. I mean, besides levers, I've got every imaginable cable. I've got brake pads. I've got the fluids and the sprays and foot pegs and all that stuff. And it's unusual for something to break and me not to have the part on hand that I can fix it right away. And every now and then something kooky happens and I'm like, oh, that's an oddball part. But in fact, just this week I bought a BN exhaust pipe on eBay. It was on sale. And I said, oh, I'm going to buy this. I might need it someday. And I think that's part of the battle, is that stuff breaks and there's such a lag time between someone to come and fix it, or I have to order a part and who knows when it comes in, and that's a bike that's out of service. And most of us can't afford to have bikes out of service.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, I have no idea how many spare out of service reserve bikes exist in our system. We have 13 bikes in every trailer. So there's at least 12% more than there need to be, but I don't know how many there are at our service provider shop that they then can swap in.
You have 13 bikes in the container for 12 students for every class? Wow.
That would not work here.
What does that mean?
One bike, one spare. I'm sorry, I would never trust one spare. Yeah, it's crazy. We are supposed to have 14, so and we have more than that.
So the interesting thing about that is I don't disagree with that, just if I'm looking at that from a 30,000 foot level, but in all the classes that I've ever taught, I've never had a situation arise where there weren't enough bikes for the students that showed up for class, because even though maybe there's 12 on the schedule, it's pretty unusual, or at least it is, especially these days, that there's actually going to be 12 students that show up. So if I have 13 bikes, maybe I have 11 or 10 students ultimately. So it's actually never been a problem, fortunately.
Good.
Knock on wood. Yeah.
I did have an issue. The start of last season, or 2 seasons ago, I guess now it was, had a class early in the season and it was cold out, and some of the bikes just would not cooperate with the low temperatures. I think I ended up with 8 bikes out by the mechanic shed that I simply could not get to restart.
Was it you that was talking about Kimco's, Mike?
Yeah, I went through all 3 of our Kimco's. And then I had
Kimco's.
That was a class where I had the guy that was 6'4", 350 pounds. Like, I don't know what to put you on.
We had Kimco's as fleet bikes for a while, and the reason that we stopped using those entirely was because they would not run when it's cold.
Oh yeah, you got to let them warm up for a good half hour at least.
You got to be able to get it started to let it warm up, though.
Well, I love all those grinding noises that the starter makes. It's part of the fun.
Well, if you started them up at 7:30 instead of 4:30 in the morning, I mean, it's a little colder at 4:30.
Yeah, well, I'm not the one getting there at 4:30 to start them up.
I know, Mike. It's the other Mike.
Hey, if an exercise says 30 to 35 minutes, he can have it done in 15. He's out of there by noon every day.
Not every day.
Pretty close. I learned some great tricks from him.
I'll bet you did. We'll talk about them before we get teaching again.
I mean, I have no idea what you're talking about, Ron.
Good comeback. Yeah.
Laura, how many sites do you have in your state? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry, sometimes my space bar doesn't work. I think we have 26, although that may or may not be correct. I can look it up for you. Not nearly, we do not rock it as like anywhere close to Illinois. I'm still trying to wrap my head around those training numbers and those site numbers for you all.
And how far is like the furthest sites from each other? And also for the person that has the bike shop that has the contract, how many people do they have that are working with you? Is it a full-time thing in addition to their shop? You know, how many people do they have on staff helping you? Or is it a...
I have no idea. To answer that second question, I have no idea. Let's see. I'm going to look up how far away that stuff is.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, you know, I wonder if, you know, putting that contract up for bid for somebody who can handle that, if that's a possibility, maybe who can have more, you know, dedication, maybe increasing the pay a little bit if it's coming from the state, might be an incentive to increase the accountability, and then making like maintenance procedures where it's a flow, where it comes, you're CC'd on everything, and it goes to the head person and they have people underneath them that they're accountable to. And it's like, okay, this is part of your contract. And, you know, that might hold a little bit more leverage. I'm just thinking, I'm not sure what you have going on there.
I mean, I think that's excellent advice. And to some extent, we kind of do have that in place. It's just that there's never anything on the backside. And I think part of it is that the person who is responsible for receiving the emails and the calls about maintenance requests is not the person who's working on the bike. And it's not the person who's picking up the bike or dropping off the bike, probably. So yeah, I mean, I think if there was a person who then reported to a other person, that would probably be a better situation. It looks like from our maintenance contractor to our farthest away site is about 350 miles. So that's a long way.
That's significant.
Yeah, and I don't think that they do. I think that for the most part, somebody else probably does maintenance or whatever needs to be done to the bikes in those super remote kind of places. But that's all kind of beside the point, because the majority of our training happens in the Twin Cities Metro, and just from Twin Cities Metro, it's like an hour and a half to there. Let me see what that is.
Yeah, that's about like Cook County. It's about an hour and a half around everything.
So how does your all's maintenance work?
So we have our main manager, and then we have 2 full-time mechanics, and we usually have a part-time mechanic. We haven't filled that position yet. And so for packets, for paperwork packets, each of the mechanics splits up a part of the region, and they'll go pick up the packets and deliver them so we can process it. And they will service each of those sites. And that's kind of their area. If there's more than like one person that's needed, they'll team up. But yeah, for the most part, you know, 3 people, and the furthest 2 sites are about 2-3 hours apart. So about it's about 150-200 miles, something like that. But splitting it up between 3 people and having full trucks with, you know, toolboxes on them, and also a 100-gallon gas tank on the back, and being able to pull trailers and stuff, because we have trailers and containers and moving things around. And we also have a plethora of motorcycles. We're very blessed. We have over 500 motorcycles. We have a ridiculous amount. I'm wondering if that's another thing too, if you'd be able to, if these are state owned, if you could auction them, give them to the state to auction off and get new motorcycles in. Might be a little bit.
How that works. Yeah, it's just that there hasn't been the resources to be able to do that. I don't remember the last time we got, well, that's not true. There's been I think the way that it normally works is that there's just kind of a trickle of replacement bikes gradually coming into the system. And I think the last time that occurred was probably like 2013 or something.
And
maybe
who makes those
2012.
decisions?
As far as as motorcycle acquisition,
Mm-hmm.
our state coordinator and probably our program coordinator.
Okay. Yeah, that might be something too. And taking the old bikes and using them, we use ours as scrap bikes, and we'll pull parts off that are still good, and then whatever's like salvage, if it's down to the frame, then we'll get rid of them. So that's how we have a lot of parts. Or that's why even just having kind of like a dedicated kind of team makes it, we're very blessed too with being able to have that. So that's, I'm like, if you have a contract with somebody where they have multiple people, same team, if there's one email that your coaches could send to, it's like a maintenance email that all the maintenance guys get that you're CC'd on, then everyone gets it that needs to get it. And you can kind of have a follow-up, make a folder for it so you can follow up with it. That might be helpful. I'm just thinking.
Yeah, no, I think that's an excellent idea. And I wish that could happen, or that's the way it works. So what you said is that your mechanics basically work for your program. They're employees.
They do. Yeah, we're fortunate to be able to employ them as full-time and part-time.
So what happens to all your bikes in the off season?
We winterize them. I just went and helped them winterize a couple of sites. So we just we fill up the tanks, we stable them, we take batteries out, we store them at the sites in the containers, or we'll bring them back to the shop and we'll do the fluids and drain the carbs and do all the oil and stuff, full maintenance. So.
But your containers or your trailers live on site?
Most of them do, and for the ones that don't, Harper has given us a little section of parking lot where we kind of line them all up.
Okay, so that's the other big thing, is that all of our everything is stored in trailers here, and that contract provider comes and gets all the trailers every fall at the end of the season and brings them to their shop, and then does all of the big maintenance stuff on all the bikes, and then redistributes the trailers out to all the sites in the spring.
Yeah, having like a dedicated kind of maintenance area, would be helpful. But if you don't have that, and depending upon how much space they have too, so it's.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I can't even imagine how that goes, even the way it goes now. I mean, that's a lot of motorcycles to have to wrangle.
Yeah. Maybe they might need some extra help, maybe 2 contracts, I'm just thinking, if you guys are kind of limited.
Yeah, definitely.
So where's Don at tonight?
He's outstanding in his field.
I know he put about 700 miles on according to his Facebook posts.
Yeah. He's playing tractors with his family.
That is a long damn day on a motorcycle, 700 miles.
And Mike, you were talking earlier about the weather in New York. I don't know what it was like when he left there, but I don't imagine it was pretty.
Pretty nice now, though.
Time to get out tomorrow.
We're having a bunch of nice days in a row. I'm going to take down my canopies. I'm going to wash the bikes. I got a lot of outdoor stuff planned.
You can put your Christmas lights up.
Oh, that's a great idea. I'm going to tell my husband.
When we
You're
moved
pushing the
upstate,
envelope now.
when we moved upstate, it was wintertime, and in the spring, the snow started to melt, and there was so much snow that as the snow melted, all the wise men and baby Jesuses from people's displays were like popping to the surface. It was actually kind of comical.
I had that happen for real back in my days of playing EMT.
So yes, I'm actually putting up my Christmas lights this weekend. I've been doing that I've been slowly Christmasifying our house the last couple of days. And so I am one of those Christmas nerds, and I turned the radio on this morning, and I was like, my daughter and I looked at each other and we're like, oh my God, Christmas music, yes. And so there's one station that starts the day after. Well, they decided to go ahead and start early because of the crazy week we're having in the country. They announced that they were starting a week early, but yeah. So yes, I'm one of those goobers. There, I love it. I will be wearing my Christmas shirt when I coach my next 4 classes because I've got 4 more to go. So yay.
It's okay to be odd as long as you're willing to admit it.
Always. Weird is good. I teach my children that all the time. I'm like, weird is good.
My children also learned this week that the local Madison radio station has been starting Christmas music. I'm like, they did that 2 weeks ago. And I got looks like they were going to kill me. They're like, you knew about this 2 weeks ago and you didn't tell us? Like, yes, that's exactly why I didn't tell you.
Is that why Amelia was practicing her sugar cookies already?
That might have had something to do with it, but I got tired of not having cookies that I wanted in the house. So I sat down and made cookies the other day, and she whips out these sugar cookie things out of the fridge. She's like, here, Dad. I'm like, no, I'm not going to make that stuff. That's not going to work out. I'll just do it myself. Thank you. She's like, well, where do you get the recipe? I'm like, it's on the bag of chocolate chips. It's been there for years.
You didn't do it from memory? Come on.
No. I probably could, but I didn't.
And you know they're done when the smoke alarm goes off?
There is that, yes.
I just thought it was really cute earlier when she was talking about mom making the recipe from scratch out of her head.
Well, Amelia doesn't quite understand how a little bit of powdered sugar goes a long way with making frosting. So for right now, her mom's a genius. And we're just going to ride that out for as long as possible.
That's what makes kids worthwhile, isn't it? They think we're geniuses.
Yeah, but her mom is a genius.
That is true.
So I have an appropriate text talking about moms. I just got a text message from my mom, a group text that said, just spent 30 minutes looking for a corkscrew, remembered dad's knife, got it, then found out that it was a screw off top. Now I need that wine. So there's your happy hour mom moment from my mom that apparently spent 30 minutes looking for a corkscrew when it was a screw top wine bottle. I'm like, you may not want to drink that wine. But yes, so there's your happy hour funny for moms. So, God love her.
I'm pretty sure you can still use a corkscrew on a screw top bottle. It just takes a little more effort.
Well, it's funny. I was at the thrift store today and I actually bought her a really cool wine set that I found has a corkscrew in it. So now I feel kind of bad that I'm like saving it for later. And so, but yeah, so I thought that was just kind of one of those funny ones. So, it's been a very random week. So, and Ron, I love your dog.
It's my wife's dog.
I knew that was coming. I knew it. And if you could teach the thing to pick up and drop cones on the range, that would be awesome.
Yeah, you know, I'll bet she could get them in her mouth too. At least 2 in her mouth at one time.
And who was it who was getting up in the middle of the night to take her out to go potty?
You know, in her, what are you're drinking water from my glass? Oh my God. In her defense, my wife has a severely partially torn rotator cuff. So she's kind of incapacitated. All right, there we go. Can't quite see that, can you?
I hope you're wearing pants, Ron.
Whoa, too much.
All right, settle down here.
You know, we have signals that how you communicate to your co-coach.
Yes.
You have all kind, especially when you coach with someone pretty frequently, you end up with some signals that not many people would know. And one of my teams looks like this, and it's for oversharing.
I thought you were going to break into a rendition of YMCA.
Is that oversharing by the coach or by the students?
Just if you want to say to someone, okay, there's some oversharing going on, to the other coach usually. So, you know, TMI about whether or not Ron has pants on.
Of course I have pants on.
No, Ron,
I
it
still
is
have to
funny
take-
that they say that. Look, what was it, a couple weeks ago, I think it was, you started taking, you were standing up in the back of the room, I think and you started taking, I think, your jacket or your shirt or like your sweatshirt off or something. And I was going, oh, does he know
Sweatshirt, probably.
know his camera's on? And I was thinking this is about to get a really good happy hour. And so, but I was kind of giggling.
Speaking of clothes, Belinda, I'm curious.
Belinda,
Belinda,
it would not be a pretty sight. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Rita. Go ahead.
I'm curious what your shirt says, Belinda.
Oh, yeah, sorry. It says, remember, it says remove you from suicide. So we, I work,
cool.
One of our people, we have a foundation, a gentleman named Jaquan Winters, his young sister died by suicide, and this was one of their fundraiser shirts for their foundation. And since I had a QPR today, I wear this one, and I have another one that says "Tell me more" that I created, and that's kind of a slogan that me and another lady that do suicide trainings here in Alabama, that's kind of our thing when we do them, is we teach people to say the words "Tell me more" and to help. But yes, but that's what this is. It says remove you from suicide, and so yeah, that's one of my favorite shirts to wear around town.
Before I could really see what it was, I thought it was something about removing you and I can come between suicide or something to that effect.
Yeah, we always talk about it, you know, just saying the one question and being able to comfortably talk about it. We always kind of laugh. My friend Cheryl and I, we said not everybody can sit around and talk about suicide over coffee, but we will, and we'll talk to you about it too. So we're pretty comfortable with it. You know, you have to be, and so yeah, I love doing it. One of my favorite side jobs that I have, or my contract jobs I have.
You know, I often feel like everything relates pretty well back to us teaching BRCs, including people's attitudes and giving them value in life. And sometimes, you know, I feel like I'm keeping a student away from suicide because you're empowering them in a way that changes their mental attitude. Don had something in his email about a 3-minute thesis in the last email blast he sent out. Maybe that could be turned into, you know, the idea of how much we change people's lives could be turned into a 3-minute thesis.
We really do change people's lives. If we will look at it as not just teaching people or coaching people, you know, and the meaning behind it. Because I know when I learned, I wanted to learn for so long. And then, of course, then I did not successfully complete, we'll use the coach terms, right? Did not successfully complete my first time. And I was devastated that I had to come back. But it was amazing that I had to come back, because I always say it was a God wink because of who I met and who my coaches were later, the second time around. But like I said, I have a person I'm in a book club thing with some grief companions. And we're going through a certain book called first aid for broken hearts, and he's a Harley rider, and we our group always kind of connects. We have about 3 of us that ride, and how motorcycling connects so much with that, and so there's just so many things connecting. So yeah.
Motorcycling, I got into motorcycling. It was an intellectual pursuit. I saw a bike and said, that looks interesting. I wonder how that works. And it was just another cool thing I did. It wasn't like a big goal or, it ended up being life altering, but I didn't know it was going to be life altering, at the time. And sometimes I have to screw my head around the fact that, for a lot of the people in our class, this is really groundbreaking stuff. It's liberating them from all the people that said, no, you can't. And the first independent thing I've done, or, this is breaking rules. And that wasn't my experience. And I have to constantly remind myself that it is a huge, huge thing for many of our students. And that needs validation, I think.
So Belinda, do I have you thinking about a 3-minute thesis now?
Let me go read his post and see what it's about. The main thing about for 3 quick minutes. And so, but what was it about? Tell me a little bit. I haven't had, like you said,
I know of the concept. I didn't. He wants to start a library of 3-minute thesis, and there's a lot of research or support for, you should be able to get your point across in 3 minutes. And when you force yourself to get your point across in 3 minutes, you force yourself to consolidate to the truly important information. And with short attention spans, giving a 3-minute piece of information is usually a good chunk to spew that much information of really solid stuff that people can take that 3 minutes of information that you gave them and really mull it over and get a lot from that 3 minutes, rather than sometimes we spend a half hour trying to get to our point and we add so much extra in that wasn't necessary.
Yes. So I know what we call it. I call it in our field we call it the elevator pitch, and because you got to be able to go from the ground floor to the penthouse and be able to sell somebody on something, right? Yes, I can definitely do that. That was one thing that was a big training that I did over this past year. No, in 2019, was a lot of what I did was try to, when I was doing grief coaching kind of things, and like there was a difference in my counseling and my coaching, and the coaching was great because it was for the people that are ready to move forward in their life. And a lot of it was that 1-2 minute, and people, well, what is grief coaching? Because everybody knows what grief counseling is. And so, and then what is QPR, and it's, we teach people to ask one quick life-saving question to, and to get comfortable with saying the word suicide. So yeah, so I definitely can do a 3-minute thesis on suicide, death, and mental health. And so.
I've also seen at a few conferences in the last few years, something they call a lightning round, where speakers have 3 to 5 minutes to get on stage and essentially do their whole presentation that they would normally use an hour to present, but they have that 3 to 5 minutes, and they can essentially get, at least without having audience interaction, a lot of information spoken about in that short period of time.
I like this idea of lightning round, and I hope the next time that Don rather puts together the IRETS session, that's exactly what he does.
I did a training program. I attended a training program a few years back that was similar to that, where we had to do a presentation. And once we did it, then we had to turn around and cut it right in half. So it's like it's like a bullseye, like a dartboard, trying to hit the bullseye with the information that you're to present. And as you move to the outer rings, everything becomes less important until you get, until you get out to the outer rings. It's like, who gives a darn? But trying to get people to focus on what's important, especially in your coaching. What's important? Well, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, you did this, you didn't do that. Wait a minute. Focus on this. So something to consider.
Yeah, it reminds me of speech class and debate team, where we would they'd throw some topic at you and you would have to masterfully kind of combine 3 main points off the top of your head and then weave them back in super quick. But yet we have more time to do this. So, and if it's something we're really passionate about, we should be able to provide enough information. So kind of makes me think it's like, would we use this for coaches? Would you use this for like a VRETS or an IRETS kind of thing? It sounds like there's a lot of potential here to kind of, get people to really, figure out what they stand for and to see if they can support it. And then, kind of have some fun kind of jousting and, support from both sides. I think that would be a lot of fun.
It sounds good from the angle of the thought process, that it lets people distill down their information into the really important topics.
I think that what he said was that the intent was that it would be like, as Rita said, a library for rider coaches. So maybe rider coach tips in 3-minute thesis form.
Oh no, we will have another library of things that are not approved in your state.
But at the same time, along Jason's thought process, to do something live, and it doesn't have to be Don doing an IRETS. He can, he can come up with ideas, but it takes more than one person to make things happen. So Jason, you volunteered to help Don put on a virtual conference.
Absolutely voluntold Don to do this. It's very important. And I am not even a little bit surprised to hear that Sarah was involved in debate team.
I used to teach communications and psychology to students at Le Cordon Bleu. So they would do demos on TV, and that was pretty fun. I used to get all kinds of awesome food in downtown Chicago. I was spoiled. But they shut them all down, which really sucks. So yeah, but it's a lot of fun. I was looking up my notes to see if I can find some fun, easy outlines to share with everybody to make it a little bit easier. So it can help.
I think we decided that video and music is a thumbs up, but no to nudity.
Wow. The idea that had to be verbalized. I mean,
well, Robin was here, so.
Did you get that, Jason? It was because Robin wasn't on the conversation.
I'm sorry.
Who apologized for not being able to be here to entertain us tonight, but said he was looking forward to watching the video and catching up on what we discussed.
I can't wait to throw him under the bus. Let's everyone take a turn.
Go ahead.
In all seriousness, I am kind of bummed out. I sent out an email this week to the entire RiderCoach staff, and with a link that said, hey, or at least with a link to Don's website to come check out the happy hour stuff. I have not even a lurker that signed in. I figured we'd have somebody, or maybe they signed in and saw that Rita and I were already here and thought to hell with that. But
I have done the same.
Wait, what the heck? I didn't get anything from you, Jason.
That's because I knew you'd be here.
Well, I did want to get a look at Rita's face, but it's nice to see you too.
So Lynn, you've sent out notices to your staff to come on here.
I have sent out notices. I didn't send this week, but I have sent numerous notices and other times, hey, check out this, you know, and reminding them, even though they get the emails about VRETS, I remind them. But I feel like the participation is slim to none. I have had a couple of people jump in on VRETS, but they were people that for work obligations were unable to attend our last PDW session, and that's a way that they can get credit, you know, is by attending a few VRETs. So they had some motivation there. But I don't know if it's busyness or a lack of interest or what the deal is. I guess I'll have to get more aggressive.
How about
I think
the rest of you?
you have to be worried, or not worried. You have to be ready to throw away 2 hours of your life to be here. And then you get here and realize it's kind of entertaining. Sometimes you're part of the entertainment, and sometimes you just get to sit back and watch.
Yep.
Yeah.
How about the rest of you? How many of you have reached out to staff or your teams to get them to come? Any success ever?
Oh, me too. My entire staff always attends.
Well, yeah, Ted's here. We know.
Duh.
When I did the presentation that one Sunday, I solicited and got exactly one of my respected coworkers to attend. And that was the sum total of anyone that I've ever got to show up for any of these.
It's more that I could do. So.
Our numbers are awful low tonight. Is it because of the election or what?
There's an election? At least my kids didn't wake up crying this morning thinking their mom was going to be sent back to Eau Claire. Not to get, you know, go down the election rabbit hole. When Trump got elected, I swear to, so the kids 4 years ago woke up completely hysterical that this was happening, not like they knew before they went to bed. They heard, that's because they're kids, and to preface this, my children were afraid of Santa Claus because he had claws. Totally like literal in how they process information, apparently. And when it had to do with Trump coming in and saying we're going to send all these people back to where they came from, they're like, Mom's got to go back to Eau Claire, but she won't be able to live with us. I'm like, oh my God. How? And we didn't watch the news, so I'm like, holy shit, I can't imagine their teachers are actually bringing this up as a topic in elementary school. So that means other kids are talking about this. Talk about fish hooked. But that was like an entire hour worth of conversation that morning about how, oh no, Mom can still live in the forest with us. It's okay. So that didn't happen this morning.
My 14-year-old, she's in 9th grade. She gets in the car, and on Wednesdays I always pick her up and we go go Jack's and go to get ice cream, and we either do drive-through or whatever. Anyways, and I said, "How was today, baby?" And she looked at me. She goes, "9th graders are stupid. They think they know politics." And I was cracking up laughing. She said, "Mom, there was the stupidest debate in our biology class," and she's going, "This is biology, shut up." She was just like, "9th graders are stupid." And I'm like, "You do know you're a 9th grader." She goes, "Yes, and I don't know politics." And so she came home and she was like, "I'm getting on Pinterest, leave me alone." And so I'm like, "Me too, baby, me too."
Smart girl.
If they still teach civics class somewhere around 9th, 10th grade, they're probably more qualified than I am to give an opinion.
I remember taking in 5th grade. Remember civics and economics. And I was just like, this is boring as heck.
Yeah, how am I ever going to use this stuff in real life?
Clearly to get your way out of a bar fight. If they were open. So
Laura,
Rita,
is it-
go on.
Surprised by how much school stuff they use in real life.
Hmm.
I use a ton of school stuff. I mean, laying out ranges, geometry, you know, I mean, there's lots of stuff that comes back to me and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember when I learned this. It's kind of cool.
There's Ron randomly standing in his yard. I'm telling y'all, when he stands back there,
Whoa, did he just throw the dog?
It's like an exorcist kind of thing going on here.
Do you get worried he's going to take his shirt off, Belinda?
What? What? Believe me, it wouldn't be a pretty sight, Belinda. Trust me.
like you said, when you're standing in the back of the room, just like it cuts off and it just stands there like you're stalking. It just, I don't know. Like I said, maybe
I had to pick up the puppy. You know, we had to go out. You know, I mean, you got to do these things. You know.
It's okay, Ron. You don't have to explain what you do in your personal life.
Oh, thank you, Reed. So what did I miss? I forgot to take my phone with me. Nothing? Okay, good.
Oh, this is I want to tell you, with there being what? There's like 5 of us ladies on here tonight, or 6. I learned a new saying that I guess because I'm in Alabama, I've never heard it before. It's called PMS retreats, which is parked motorcycle syndrome. And I've never heard that before until like the Motor Maid sisters from up north, they all have this PMS get-togethers, and it's called parked motorcycle syndrome. And I was, because we ride all year round, and so we just buy our heated gloves and go. And one of our Motor Maid sisters was talking about that, and with all you ladies from being up north, I thought about y'all. And so
I've not heard the retreat part, but I've heard the PMS part.
yeah, whenever they were talking about having one, I think the lady in Arkansas, Shelly from Arkansas, and so, which to me is still southern, so I don't know why they won't ride, but I guess if there's snow.
What makes you think it's just a female thing, Belinda?
Yeah, I apologize for being sexist.
Yeah, guys have a time of the month too. They just don't manifest the way we do.
There is a term for that, but I'm not going there.
Jason, you were talking about cookies. You know, I'm surprised we haven't, had a cookie, recipe swapping here. I think that'd be pretty cool. Like family, favorite recipes. I think that'd be pretty cool now the holidays are coming around.
I really use the one on the back of the bag.
The Nestle Toll House.
Way to change the subject.
Maybe that should be one of the breakout sessions for the virtual IRETS, Sarah.
However, as a fact, I guess, fun fact that I feel like I'm winning at life, my mother finally gave up my grandmother's spaghetti sauce and lasagna recipe to me, which I've only asked for 2 years. And my kids actually like it, which is amazing.
Were any secrets revealed?
Well, I don't know about secrets, but I tried to make spaghetti sauce on my own a couple times. Never once did I come close. Clearly, I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
So what's different about your mom and your grandma's recipe than what you were doing?
Tomato paste, no actual like canned tomatoes or anything like that. And the seasonings were different as I was just throwing stuff in the pan to see what happened. And honestly, you could have poured it out of a jar and made it better than anything that I tried to do. But immediately follow the recipe, and lo and behold, it was spaghetti like I had when I was a kid. Like, okay, this is good. And the fact that my kids ate it, when my children think spaghetti sauce out of a jar is perfectly acceptable, and I think it sucks. but finally we got there. My mother does one thing horribly wrong, and it is chicken. So in our family, if something sucks, it's like, oh, is this Deb's chicken recipe you've used? To the point that my mom knows about this, because she'll invite me over and like, Jason, I'm making chicken. Are you coming over? I'm like, no, not even a little bit. But all the stuff that came from my grandma, who apparently was not raised by her parents, but raised in an Italian neighborhood by an Italian family. And they used to just make spaghetti. And apparently this is just how stuff was. Little did I know spaghetti sauce has sugar in it. And you're nodding your heads. I did not know this at all. It was pretty okay.
I will share an embarrassing spaghetti sauce story. My family is not Italian at all. We are German, Swedish, we're from the other parts of Europe. Italian, we didn't know Italian food, whatever. So my parents were out of town when I was a junior high. And my friend Scott, said, oh, well, I'll come over one night and I'll show you guys how to make lasagna. And we said, oh, that'll be great. So he gives me a shopping list, which I give to my older sister. She's in charge to go buy the ingredients. So he sees me at school and he says, did your sister get the ingredients yet? I said, yeah. He says, well, what kind of pasta did she get? And I said, mozzarella. And he starts laughing, ha, 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 ha. And he says, no. He says, pasta's the macaroni, mozzarella's the cheese. I'm like, oh, I didn't know, I'm not Italian. So that was our little joke. He comes over, we make wonderful lasagna. My parents come back a week or two later and they're like, oh, what did you kids do while we were gone? I said, oh, Scott came over. He showed us how to make lasagna. I said, it was really funny. He said to me, what kind of pasta did she get? And I said, mozzarella. And my mother laughs heartily and she says, pasta's the sauce. So we are not Italian at all, but I did learn how to make lasagna. So thank you, Scott.
Well, I don't know about cookies and lasagna and spaghetti sauce, but Bill made a Guinness chocolate cake with Bailey's frosting today, and we don't get to eat it till tomorrow night. And I'm waiting and waiting because I think it's probably the best one he's ever baked.
That sounds wonderful. I made Guinness ice cream once and it was really good. So the cake sounds awesome.
Yeah, the recipe only calls for Guinness, only Guinness in the cake itself, but it wouldn't be right unless he also added Jameson whiskey to the cake batter.
Certainly, and a good thing. And as long as we're talking about recipes, I got gifted this excellent book from a friend who was laughing hysterically as he brought it over. It is literally titled All About Sausage. Made by Oscar Mayer circa 1973. What in the hell?
That's awesome.
And I told my mom about this. She's like, I think I had one of those. Like, you're kidding. She's like, no. Oscar Mayer, there's probably one in every home, being that Oscar Mayer was local to Madison, Wisconsin at the time. So that's what I have in the
old cookbooks. Like, they're such a super cool, like, cultural standard bearer of the time, if that makes sense. Like, it's, I mean, and the 70s were bad as far as food goes.
There's something else. I have, as much as I can't make anything, I have a couple favorite cookbooks that are totally worth trying out. There's one that, and there's more than one of these, but the title of it, it's called Thug Kitchen. It's a vegetarian cookbook.
It's vegan.
I'm not all about that shit, but if you take that and put some sausage in it, it's awesome. So most of their stuff's really good, and it's written in the language that I speak, which is
a lot of swear words.
Pretty much, but hilarious. And there's another one called, I think it's New Age Cooking. It is a Bluefie's restaurant cookbook. The restaurant is called Bluefie's. It was run by my friend Billy, and their meatloaf, or the way I make meatloaf, with a little bit too much pepper in it, because I knew what sauce versus noodles was, but I didn't know the difference between poblano peppers and serrano peppers. Oh. And at the grocery store I went to, it was just peppers. It was in there. It said poblano peppers. So I grabbed one. Turns out that wasn't it. there's a significant difference in the Scoville scale between Serrano peppers and Poblano peppers. And now I make really freaking hot meatloaf and it's awesome.
That's hilarious that you're talking about Thug Kitchen, because I think that's like I'm not a vegetarian, and that's actually a vegan cookbook, I think, and I think it's fantastic and hilarious. There's a like mashed up chickpea and avocado salad, like it's kind of like a sandwich salad, you know, like tuna or whatever it would be. That, and it has smoked almonds in it. That shit is so good. That sold me on the whole cookbook.
Wait, Thug Kitchen? Like cook like you give a fuck? That one? That's not vegan. No, it's got meat in it.
No,
Then you're not looking at the right one.
I have that cookbook.
There's tofu in that cookbook. It's blasphemous, but the rest of it's great. And if you add meat to it, it's fantastic.
Don't make me run down to the kitchen.
Well, a good friend of mine has a different cookbook that has healthy recipes in it. I'll share my screen and show you this other great cookbook.
Uh-oh.
I hope I will. No, I don't know where my screen went.
Wait, I can't take it. I'm gonna go and.
Okay, go get it. Let's see how that is. No meat. Laura might be right. It could be vegan, maybe. Not sure.
So there, do you all see my screen? No?
I think we see a white screen.
Work. Well, what the heck? I bet my good friend is going down to get this wonderful cookbook.
In our family, there's a joke that at some point we just all end up talking about food. And here we are.
I'm just eating leftover Halloween candy.
Oh, that's what I forgot to do, was go to Walmart and get the Halloween candy deal. Shit. Oh, well.
So when our family, when our kids, my kids look back on our pictures, that's literally what they're going to say. They're going to say, oh my God, is that all you did was eat? Because my mom always seems to have a camera in her hand when we're eating. And I'm like, stop taking pictures of us, old lady. I'm telling you, I mean, every single picture, we're eating food. And I mean, I don't know. Yes, food is amazing. I'm telling you guys, more people have come to Jesus over coffee and soup than anything else, y'all. I promise you, food is just so much better with family and friends. Yes. So yes, I agree. We need to be exchanging recipes, because I've got lots of good Southern recipes you guys can have. And I do miss the food in Minnesota. The one year I was up there, they had some really great food. And I would love to get some recipes from you guys up that way.
One of the things that I've been known to say is that cooking and motorcycling are really the only two hobbies that I've had for my whole life. Nothing else has stuck around in that same way as those two things.
Laura, did you go get your other wonderful cookbook? Your chicken cookbook.
Yeah, that one. That's it.
Where's the meat? Where's the meat? I never noticed. Laura, is it? I never noticed there was no meat in here. We're like keto people. We eat meat 3 times a day here. That's shocking.
Well, it's awesome. That tells you what a great cookbook it is, because I feel like that same way. I mean, we're definitely meat eaters at my house, and I think that's a great cookbook, and it's funny.
The black bean, everything, tacos are good, and the peach, whatever the hell salsa that I made was really great. It's totally worthwhile.
I'm not showing the
leather legs. My mom made leather chicken. I swear to God. And so my younger brother, Ben, is at the table, and he will not eat this chicken because it was horrible. And my father was so pissed off. So pissed off. So as kids, you know, if you wouldn't eat dinner, you're going to eat dinner with the goddamn lights out, sitting in the kitchen until you ate it. And Ben's there an hour later. He's 2 years younger than me. And let's see, this house, I couldn't have been older than 1st or 2nd grade. So that puts you in the 7-year age, which means Ben's about 3 or 4. My dad, and of course I don't have my kid here to do this to, my dad takes his hands, puts them on Ben's mouth. It's like, I will make you chew this. And it was, you know, this is a semi-traumatizing event, but to us now it's funny as hell.
I think it's hilarious that people automatically assume that everyone's mom is a good cook.
So an award that we got to like really solidify how this didn't work out for my mom in life, cooking was not it. When I was in high school, the local pizza place brought us one of those 5-foot tall freaking stockings. And of course we're like, well, okay, thank you. Why? Oh, you were our #1 residential customer this year. My mom ordered the shit out of pizza. She was really good at it.
Belinda, I think you should start a thread on the RiderCoach forum for recipe swap, since that was your idea.
Might just have to do that. Yeah. Well, your stories are funny because so one of the biggest things, my mom and I have this big thing about, like, so mom's an amazing cook. She's absolutely amazing. But the one thing that I don't like that she cooks is the way she cooks boudin. And I don't know if you guys have ever had it, or you know what it is. Anyways,
please explain what that is.
Okay, so essentially, if you want to elevator pitch, it is pork dressing or crawfish dressing, shrimp, whatever you want, but it's mostly pork dressing shoved into a sausage casing, or the way that I like to make them, and the best way my husband likes to eat them, is it's rolled up and fried into a ball, and so you can make boudin balls. Or most of the time it's in a link, but it's like a rice dressing, almost kind of like a dirty rice, kind of really, 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 really good. Anyway, so you can buy it along the best place to buy them is along I-10, the gas station along I-10. If you try to buy boudin anywhere is above I-10, it's just crap. I mean, it's just nasty. And but eventually, most people that are from there that move away get so frustrated not being able to find it, they eventually learn to make it. And so I started last year, year and a half ago. So anyways, I got so frustrated with only being able to get it when I went home to visit my family that I started to make it, because my mom makes crap. Like, she's so proud of her boudin, and I'm like, no, your boudin's so nasty. And so, and she's like, no, and I'm like, no, it's so gross. And we figured out what our differences are. So we're actually going to have a boudin cook-off when we go home to Louisiana. We're going to make it, and they're not going to tell the family which one of us made which recipe, and we're going to see who prefers which one. But a funny story about that is here in Alabama, there's a guy that opened a Cajun restaurant, or Cajun store, like restaurant and meats and all that, right down the road from our church. And there was a big sign that says, "We sell boudin." And I'm like, oh, wow. My husband's like, we're going to have to go check it out. And I'm like, yeah, of course. So we walk in, and I'm like, so you make your own? And he's like, yes. And I'm like, oh, wow. I said, I look forward to trying it. He goes, wait a minute, let me ask you a question. He said, first off, you said it correctly. You know how to say it. He's like, did you grow up on I-10? And I was like, yes. He says, eating boudin from the gas stations? And I'm like, yes. He's like, no, you're not going to like mine. Mine tastes like shit. He's like, this is Alabama. He's like, these people in Alabama do not know what it's supposed to taste like. Don't buy my boudin. Like, seriously, don't. And I was like, that's pretty bad, you know? But yes, that is definitely a recipe that I would love. I'll put it out there. But I mean, yes, that is something that if you ever get a chance to experience, just get it from I-10 or any of the good shops down at the gas stations along.
Is that like a blood sausage stuffing?
No, there's no blood sausage. Then that's people actually do mistake that for it.
Because that's you know, I went to school in France, and boudin was like a blood sausage. So
no, that's actually very common because there's so much French, influence down there. That is something people say, and they wonder.
So what is this more like?
It's like a cooked dressing.
Okay.
It's there's not a lot of moisture in it. And like I said, the best way to do it is the way that I finally eventually got my husband, because he was like, that's watching me eat boudin was like freaked him out all the time. But at my grandmother's 80th birthday, they had boudin balls. And like I said, that he was like, if it's fried, I'm gonna eat it. And so ever since then, anytime I go home to Louisiana, I have to bring all this back. And so I just eventually learned to make it myself. And I've almost perfected the recipe.
So I just Google mapped, I asked what the best boudin along I-10 places were. And tell me what you think about these. Don's Specialty Meats.
Yeah, maybe.
Is that a good one?
It's a famous one, yeah. It's a famous
Okay.
There's a better one right around the corner from it.
Okay, and then there's Billy's Boudin and Cracklin.
Yes, that's where you order it from. If you order any boudin from there, please.
Okay.
Don't
And
order
then someplace called Homesies, number 3.
I don't know where that one is.
That one looks like it's close to Beaumont, Texas, actually, or Port Arthur.
So that's Texas boudin. So yeah. And there. It's different, y'all. It's different.
All right, I'm adding a star to my map on Billy's.
Yes. Oh, yes. Get it from Billy's. Get some boudin balls and the links. And so yes, that's definitely it.
Do they ship it?
Area. There's a sandwich apparently in Minnesota that my husband still remembers from 23 years ago. There's a restaurant up there that I'll have to see if I can remember where it is. And we'll swap.
Send me some boudin. I'll send you a garbage plate.
Ooh, what's that?
Kind of the thing that Rochester's famous for. You can't come to Rochester, New York and not have a garbage plate. Every freaking restaurant has a version of it. It started out a little Greek restaurant in what used to be a really bad section of downtown. Just hamburgers on top of mac salad, on top of home fries, covered with mustard and raw onions, and then a Greek hot sauce on top. And every single restaurant around Rochester, even really high-end restaurants, make a version of it.
Yes, maybe the hot sauce.
I did. I said it's a Greek hot sauce. And that would be my wife in the background.
That sounds really good, actually.
They are. When I was in college, they were $4. And they were open 24 hours. So after a good evening of drinking, you'd go down to the bad section of downtown at 3 a.m. with all your buddies who are probably all drunker than you were. Wander into Nick Tahoe's and garbage plates. Now I think they're up to like $10 each. I don't get them as often as I used to. Otherwise, I'll exceed the weight limit on Ron's motorcycles.
It's all right. The Kimcos can handle you.
No, they can't. Those suspensions are crap.
Wait, so Kimco makes a bike that shifts?
Say it again, Jason.
Kimco makes a bike that has a shifter? That's a question.
Oh,
I
yeah.
guess.
Yeah. The VNOX 250. VNOX 2. They used to. They don't make it anymore.
Oh, okay. I did not know this.
It looks like a 650 or 1,000 cc motorcycle, but it's only a 250 because they got extra components on it, extra plastic.
Oh, shit.
Well, it's also water cooled, so it's got a bigger engine look because it's got all that extra body.
They have a great muffler. They sound great.
Well, if it sounds good, then it must save lives. Fantastic.
Hey, Robin.
What?
Oh, he actually made it. Oh, boy.
It would appear that he's out and about. That does not look like the interior of the super awesome travel trailer thing.
Are you at a casino, Robin?
I wonder if he realizes that we see him at all.
He hasn't figured out how to talk with his phone yet.
Hey, Robin, can you hear me? I just wanted to say hi. Zip.
But he looks cool. That's what's important here.
Does he?
He appears to
You
have
barely see the strippers in the background, though.
But he's not slurring his speech that much tonight, so.
Right.
Everybody stick your tongue out at the same time and see if he.
No, that will get an undesired response. Don't do it.
All right, fine. Jason, I wanted to share with you something that happened to me when I was a kid eating at my parents' house. There were 5 kids, and they always put the older ones next to my dad to like shield him from the smaller kids and from the food flying and stuff. And there's one of my little brothers, who was known to be the picky eater, if you will, the one that never ate what he was supposed to. And if you, in my family, if you said no thank you, you got a no thank you helping. It was like a tablespoon of whatever the hell. And you had to eat that or else you were screwed. You'd sit there till the next day. And I don't know what happened, but one day my little brother Danny, the one that was a real picky eater, sat next to my dad, and I saw my dad just stewing. He had this thing that he did with his lip when one of the kids was pissing him off. And finally he got up and he said, "Damn it, you're going to eat this no thank you helping." And he tried to shove the spoon in his mouth, and Danny puked all over the dinner table. It was hilarious. We laughed about it forever. Yeah. So I just remembered that when you were talking about your dad making your little brother eat. My dad never tried to make my little brother Danny eat again, ever.
A little counterproductive there, backfired.
Yeah.
My wife claims that was a thing at her house, was you will finish everything on your plate, and she left it all on the table once, and that was the end of that. I'll believe her, sure. Thank you, Sarah, for
No, I can't hear you because I'm at dinner. I'm just here. That's all. I can now hear you sort of. I see your faces moving. I've heard you before. I'm here.
Fantastic. I'm now complete. You complete us, Robin.
Everybody just mouth, like pretend you're talking. Oh, you're right. That didn't work either. Never mind.
I'm going to call it a night, kids. So thank you much for entertaining me. Have fun. And see y'all later.
Good night.
Bye, Mike.
Yeah, I suppose it's been 2 hours and 15 minutes. I suppose we better end this, or Don will complain about having too much to edit again.
Well, just remember that it's Don's responsibility to come up with this presentation for IRETS.
To come up with the whole thing, right, is what you said earlier?
That is how it's been voluntold.
Yeah.
Everybody take care. Be
All
safe.
right, that sounds like a plan. I'm out of here too. Good night, everyone.
Guys.
Good
Yeah,
night.
have a good one.
See y'all soon.